Hi, I'm Rick McCurdy. I quit my day job in 1983 and have been building and repairing guitars full-time ever since. On an archtop guitar, wooden binding really does look the best, and I'd like to show you some tips for putting wooden binding on the F-holes of an archtop guitar. The tools we need for this process are fairly straightforward. We need a couple of sharp chisels. I usually sharpen two in case one gets dull and you don't have to stop what you're doing to sharpen again. This is a 1/4 inch, this is a 3/8. You can do most of your cutting with this. Most important is the strapping tape. This is 1/2 inch Scotch strapping tape, number 897. Holds really well and doesn't break when you're holding the maple on. This is Luthier's Mercantile brown paper tape. This is also great for large stretches where there's not a real lot of tight turns. The other tools you need is I use this hemostat to bend to get this into the final shape before I put the tape on. These are very handy, and just a pair of cutters, wire cutters, just to trim it rough while you're working in there. As a cutting block, I use pine because I used to use a maple cutting block, but as you're cutting all day it dulls the edge, so I just use a little piece of 2x4 to hold it up while I'm cutting it. So you begin with taking the pre-bent piece of maple with its black veneer already attached. I boiled this for 90 seconds and then hammered it into this mold, held it overnight, then super glued the little black 20 thousandths Castello veneer on the back. This starts as 70 thousandths maple, which I make on the drum sander. And then you can see that this is oversized for a 1/4 inch line. But because the top is three-dimensional, you can't really take a 1/4 inch piece of maple and bend it to this complex shape. So I'm going to put this rough piece in here, and I'm going to mark it with a pencil and trim it on the belt sander so I have less bulk to bend to get it into the right shape. This piece of binding will have 2 mitres on it, one down here and one at the top. Before I install it, I'm going to make it a little bit easier myself and just cut this one first. Now this is a great trick for cutting mitres. You polish the inside of your chisel to a mirror finish, and as you cut you can see in the background reflected the angle of the mitre, so you can actually get the mitering exactly right. Now I always cut vertically like this because that's the way Bob Benedetto showed us, but John Zeidler, certainly no slouch at this business, used to cut like this. So you try any way you like to get the best result. Now this mitre is ready to install. I've cut it to size, and now we're ready to glue the whole thing in. You start by laying out a bunch of tape, little pieces, about 2-inch pieces, on the counter. So once you get started, you don't have to stop and think about what you're doing. You can use a very small set of spruce wedges to really get this part in tight. This will hold better than any tape. I put them on like this and squeeze that thing. You can't see on here, but boy, there's no gap on this thing now. I use this water-thin super glue, which, as you know, really absorbs into almost anything. The real point here is not to put too much on. Get it right where you want it and just put a little on. I squeeze the bottle a little bit like this, and then I can suck back any excess that goes on. You really can get a good control of how much super glue you're putting. Now that we've got the top and bottom pieces glued into place, now we'll put the middle piece in. Same thing, these are bent on a mold with heat and steam. And now we'll measure it. This is oversized. We'll cut it on the bandsaw, basically to size, and we'll trim the ends with the chisel, just like before. Trim the mitre on the new piece. Trim the first end using the mirrored chisel trick. Now we cut the pointy part of the mitre. Now, because this is up in the air, we put a little piece of wood underneath the tip of the binding to hold it up. So you're not just pushing, you may break the top. We use our mirrored polished chisel again, and you can see right here, this tells you how far and where your angle is. You see, that's not a good angle, but that is just about right. And I'm going to nibble my way up to it, not cut a huge chunk first. Hey, that's real nice. So when you get the first pointy mitre looking good, you take the inside piece, the straight piece, you've already cut the other side of the mitre, and you just do this, get your approximate angle, and like I did before, you nibble your way up to it until it fits. Plastic is very forgiving, but wood, you really only get one shot at it, so it's best to go slow and just keep test fitting it to see if you're getting that nice clean line. This is a good fit, but it's still, I'm going to put it on the other side, it's a little too long still. So we're going to work our way up to that pencil line. Now I've got my piece all fitted. Both mitres are cut. Both mitres on the new piece are cut. This is a trick I use that works really well. Super glue makes a black line as it dries. So in these mitres, I like to put a little white glue just to keep the super glue out. And it really makes it look like a seamless plastic joint, which is very hard to do with wood. A little white glue in the ends, tape as usual, and then we use super glue for the rest of it. So here's the binding all completed, taped, glued, and ready to go. We'll let it rest a day, and we'll peel all the tape off and level the binding with this cabinet scraper.